Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we are starting getting our annual tradition of me trying different subgenres of romance. And this time we are going to be reading some historical romance. So I will leave my genre taste test down below, and I will leave the past 3 editions of this. So we had contemporary, fantasy romance, and dark romance. And as I said, this time we are doing historical romance. So 2 books I got recommended directly from Maria. So Maria did recommend Tessidaire, which was a name that I had already heard of when people talked about historical romance. I don't follow that many people that read historical romance, but even I have heard of Tessidaire. So I definitely was like, yes, I do have to read. And Maria said that her favorite one that she'd read from Tessidaire was A Week to Be Wicked, and so I was like, I guess I'll give that a go. Also, she told me that her favorite historical romance that she has read so far is When the Duke Was Wicked by Lorraine Heath. So thank you, Maria, for both of those recommendations. Okay, so just jumping in here, that I forgot to mention the second person. I just started saying she, and like that makes it seem like it's Maria, but it's a different person. So this is Melissa, book bar. Is her numbers? I'll leave her also linked down below. But again, so thank you to both of them for their recommendations. She recommended a couple of authors, but one was Stacey Reid. I looked her up and I found a book called The Earl in My Bed, and the synopsis sounded very intriguing to me. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give that a go as well. So that's 3, and then I needed one more. It's actually one that I decided on myself because I was thinking and I was like, there's definitely some authors that I've heard of like a lot and like seen the covers of. And so like there was a lot of options because I know like Lisa Kleypas and like Beverly Jenkins and all of that. Like I'd heard of them a lot. And so I was thinking and I was trying to figure out what I wanted. So if you know me at all, I'm a big fan of figure skating. And a lot of like my recommended tweets and stuff, my Twitter account actually originally was about figure skating, and then I changed it to books. And I don't really use Twitter, X, whatever. I don't really use it that much anyway. But because of being into figure skating, I actually followed Courtney Milan because she is a big figure skating fan. So I followed her for figure skating reasons, not bookish reasons. And I was like, I know that she does write historical romance, but like I didn't read romance at that time, so I was like, I'm not gonna read any of her books. And it popped into my head. I was like, oh my god, I should read a book from her. So then I just went on SCRIBD, I saw what books that they had by her, and I decided on Once Upon a Marquess. So those are the 4 books that I will be reading in this vlog, and buckle up and we'll see how this goes. I haven't gotten very far in or anything like that, so like this isn't a proper update, but this book is like, it's not good. Like there are things that like would normally like I would absolutely hate, but for some reason, because it's a historical setting, I'm like, fine. But they were just talking about like a new species, and she's talking about how like she thinks that it'll like get recognized as a new species and she'll get to name it, and he goes and he just says, we can name it right here. I suggest Frank. And I literally, I couldn't stop laughing. Oh, it is, yeah. As I said, like, I'll save like my proper thoughts, but like there's a lot of stuff in it. Like it's very like, she's very like feminine. Like a lot of the time she talks about like how, you know, she's so like caring and motherly and all of this stuff. And just like the way like some of the descriptions are done and all of this stuff. And like a lot of the time, like she's also like very much not like other girls and all of this. And like normally that stuff would really bother me, but I don't know, like in a historical setting it kind of just works. Like also like he has like, you know, a traumatic past, of course he does, and so that's why he treats women the way he does. And like because it's in the past, I can't scream at the book, dude, get therapy. I'm just like, sure, makes sense. like there's so much in this book that I'm like, oh god, this is so bad. But also am I screaming a little? Yeah. Like it's so silly. It's so much fun. As I said, like some of the descriptions and everything, like it's just like so over the top, and like even like the way like some bits were described about like male and female, and like the way that just like looking at him makes him like filled with lust. My logical brain is like, ew. But also, for some reason, I'm just like chuckling, just over here giggling to myself. Like, I don't understand it, but it's working. Hello. So I'm officially giving a 50%, but I think more accurately 56% of the way through update. So my first book obviously is A Week to Be Wicked. I completely forgot the name, by Tessa Dare. And I feel like this is a really good book to choose, like, just in general, and also to start with, because obviously I feel like Tessa Dare is like one of those authors that like I see always. So I feel like it was a good book to choose one. And obviously it was a book that Maria liked. In fairness, I have learned that just because my fantasy taste a lot of the time lines up doesn't mean my romance taste would line up, but I don't really know any historical romance people, so I went to Maria, and I'm really glad she recommended me this one. This book follows Minerva, and she also, I believe this is actually the second book in the series, and so it's like the Spindle Cove series, I think. And so this is like a seaside town where, you know, wealthy women go to, you know, either recover from illness or just basically find some nice leisure time and all of that kind of stuff. And Minerva moved here with her family because her sister has really bad asthma, and she hears a rumor that one of like the notorious like rakes of the town is going to propose to her sister, and her mother really wants this and has been pushing basically like that they're not leaving the town until this man proposes to her sister, and she believes that her sister deserves better. And so she comes up with a plan and goes to his house in the middle of the night, and she basically comes up with his grand plan. She wants to go to Scotland because she is a geologist and she needs a way to get there. And she says, if you leave my sister alone, the two of us, we will pretend to elope. We will run off to Scotland together. I will give you all of my winnings because she is so sure that her research will win a prize here. And then I get to, you know, make a name for myself. And so that is kind of their bargain. Obviously, she knows that this would ruin her reputation and all of this. And obviously, like, it's typical, like, you know, he might seem like he's just a typical man who's just after all of the women, but, you know, he's got hidden depths and all of that. And as I said, like, it's ridiculous and it's like over the top, and like I don't necessarily like it, but also I kind of love it. And I've never felt this way before, and I'm weirded out by it. Because a lot of people be like, I saw that there was problems in like the writing, and you know, maybe there was like this plot thing and all of that, and so they were like, I didn't like it, but also I kind of loved it. And I've never felt that way. Like, I know Sarah J Maas, a lot of people, again, they're like, there's just something like really addictive, you know, a lot of those like fantasy romance series, which obviously that's not me calling out is it me calling out fantasy romance? Fantasy romance was not a success for me trying it, let's be honest. And like, that's not to say like there's books and I'm like, I read it and I'm like, oh, I have no problems with this, or I have a problem with it, so that means I have to hate it. That's not how rating books works. But it's more that like there are things that I should, I guess, have problems with, and I just don't necessarily care because everything else is just, it's just so goofy and over the top to me. And like, the thing is, I'm not sure, is it supposed to be? Like, I'm not sure, am I supposed to be laughing at certain things in it? Like, there's some things that I know that I definitely am, but there's other things that I'm like, am I supposed to be like, or is like, I just don't know. I don't know, like, is this like sheer ridiculousness? Is this typical? Where I really like the two main characters, the absolute ridiculous hijinks they get into, and like, it's really like the last like 10 or so percent has really made me, okay, yeah, she's actually being ridiculous on purpose. Because for the first while I was like, I'm not sure, is this ridiculous and over top on purpose, or is it just like, is this just like how it is and we're supposed to take it at like, this is serious? But the last like 10% kind of convinced me that I'm like, no, it's actually not supposed to be serious, because like there's been like highwaymen and they've been like pretending to be siblings, and then like making up all of these fake stories, and as I said, nearly getting kidnapped, and she's threatening to kill people, and like, it's just so silly, but in the best possible way. It is so much fun. I'm having such a fun time, but I am a little nervous. I find a lot of the times when I read romance, I have to binge romance in a day. Like, I can't separate romance. Like, I start a romance and I get all giddy and happy. I'll stop for the night and I'll go back to it the second day. I don't think it like ever really takes me more than 2 days to read a romance. And then the second day, for some reason, it just won't hit the same. And I'm not sure, is it because I don't like the conflicts that usually come in the second half? The break or something just like messes with my head. I don't know what it is, but I have found that like my most successful romance reads have always been ones that I've basically binge read. I am a little nervous to get back into it today, in case I don't like it as much, but at the moment I would say it's a 4-star, and hopefully we'll continue on that. Hello, so I'm here with my first update. Well, it's not my first update, my first book finished. That took a while to get there. So I finished A Week to Be Wicked by Tessa Dare, and I'm giving it a 3 stars. And I knew that it was going to happen. I don't really have actually much to say that I didn't already say in the first like update or two, but I'm giving it a 3 stars. I'm annoyed at myself because it's my fault. It's my fault that it's a 3 star. I'm trying to figure out what it is. Like, is it actually the books that are like the problem, or is it me that is the problem? I'm leaning towards it's me the problem. Is it just the fact that I'm losing momentum, that like I've slept and I'm like no longer like in those like giddy feelings of like the first meeting, the early banter and all of that, and we're actually like getting into like, you know, the actual relationship stuff and the conflict and all of that, so like the happy bubbly feelings aren't there as much, and therefore it's not making me as happy, therefore it's not making me feel 4 stars anymore? Or is it that like, you know, second halves are actually weaker in romance books? Or is it that like the particular books that I'm picking up just happen to not grip me as much in the second half? Or is it just like I don't 100% know what it is. So there is a possibility that I'll just look back, because even I will say it's been like a couple of days since I read it because I haven't had the time to update, but like even then, like I've forgotten most of like the second half of the book. I remember very fondly like the first half, like the ridiculousness, the giggling, and like the little banter and jokes that like made me smile like an idiot. So like it is definitely a possibility that I could bump this up with time, but I'm not gonna keep my hopes up for it. So I knew that I should have continued, but it was like 10 o'clock and I was like, I want to go to bed. I should have just powered through. I should have just kept going, because it probably would have been a 4-star, but it's not. And as I said, I've already forgotten remember like what the conflict was really in this book. Like there definitely was one. Like I remember like a couple of scenes from the last half of like them like, you know, showing that they cared and all of that, and like I did overall, as I said, I really enjoyed them. But as I said, even though it's only been a couple of days, I'm already like forgetting like the second half, but I'm remembering the first half so much, and the kind of joy and laughter and all of that I had with that. So I did overall really enjoy this, but it is a 3-star, just because it did lose me in the second half. Yeah, so as I said, overall positive feelings on it. I really enjoyed the kind of ridiculousness of it. Like I don't think it took itself too seriously. Like, you know, it was like, you know, proper and all of this, and like I don't think it took it to like an extreme with it. And as I said, there was like definitely some things that I was like, but just because of like the vibe that she was like making and her writing style, I didn't take it too seriously, and I just had a good time. I didn't let myself get bothered by it. So yeah, so yeah, overall I did have fun. Oh, so I'm 1/3 of the way into, I don't even know what the name of the book is, Once Upon a Marquess, by Courtney Milan. It follows 2 characters, and I always really struggle with characters' names in historical fiction, because like sometimes people are calling them by their last name and sometimes it's their first name, and I'm like, wait, who? And she will say, it is kind of a complaint I have with this book, is like there's a lot of characters and like they're not really explained, like names are just kind of thrown around, but we'll get to that in a second. But so we follow our 2 characters. Our main female character is Judith, and she was the daughter of an earl, and they were pretty well off. She has a lot of siblings. One of her brother's closest friends is of interest in this book. He discovers basically that the father is basically committing treason and like reports him, and obviously their father is then arrested, their family is ruined, and this obviously ruins any blossoming relationship between the two characters. It's like brothers, best friend, but it's also like friends to enemies to lovers again. Well, friends to almost but not quite lovers to enemies to lovers. But and so obviously they're no longer friends, but she is in a bit of bother about some money for her sisters. She has been saving up. We haven't figured out how at the point that I'm at. But she has saved up some money for her sisters, so when they come of age, they'll have some money for when they're getting married. And she doesn't know where this money has gone, and her lawyer is not talking. And so she kind of enlists his help to try and get to the bottom of this. I'm enjoying it so far, but I do definitely have more complaints about this than I did book one that I read. So I'm feeling a 3-star right now, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a 3-star because, as I said, there's some things that I really like about it. There's also some things that just really aren't working for me. And my first complaint was when you were introduced, this book starts and you are just getting thrown characters' names. Like there's mentions of like this person and that person and this person, and like all of these names are getting thrown around and like not really with context. You're like, wait, is this your brother or your cousin, or you're just like trying to figure out who is who. And like obviously as the book keeps going, the names are constantly brought up, so you get there. But I just think maybe should have slowed down with the introduction of all of these characters, because like obviously they're going to continue to come up, so like just like to slowly introduce them, get us a little familiar. But as I said, like that obviously has fixed itself. I now know who everyone is. Other main complaint is actually like I don't like the plot, like the actual plot line that is kind of like, I suppose, bringing them together again. Like I don't really care about it. So like obviously, as I mentioned, it's, you know, she's trying to figure out what happened to this money, and like is someone like stealing or whatever. And I don't care about it. Like I really don't care about it. I like her, and I do really like her dynamic with the male main character, but I would say like her and her like storyline just doesn't really interest me that much, which is why I have a feeling it's gonna be a 3-star, because if I'm not enjoying the plot and I don't love one of the love interests, like it's not getting higher than a 3. But as I said, so like I'm a bit meh on that, but I do really love their dynamic. The two of them, they really get each other. Like they understand the other and their motives and their feelings. Obviously there is some things that they don't know about the others, because, you know, all of this has happened and they don't want to share it, and there's a lot of history there. But it is so good. Like they also like they have the same kind of humor, and like they like joke with each other, and like they just kind of fall back into that like banter so quickly, and they just kind of like have to keep stopping themselves because they're like, wait, no, I'm not supposed to like you. And I think their dynamic and their banter and their chemistry, I do think, is really good. And like it's not like trying too hard. And then the other thing that I really, really love, and like is really pushing me through this book, is I do love our male main character. I think he is so interesting, and I'm so intrigued to read more about him. Like he is kind of haunted by the fact that he has messed with his people that basically half raised him. Like he has ruined them, and obviously he no longer talks to any of them. They all hate him. That is obviously a huge thing. He like has nightmares about it, and also it's never explicitly stated. I'm thinking OCD, but because like he does a lot of counting stuff and like organizing things into sizes to calm himself down. The conversations are coming with that because like his mother is very concerned about him, you know, when he was younger, and like while he is charming, some people aren't going to look past his oddities, and like the discussions that are coming with that, and the fact that it has created tension in like his family's relationships and the discussions that are coming with that are really, really interesting. I do really like them. Hi, so welcome to another episode of me just pretending that I don't sit in the same position all day, every day when I'm home. And so I'm moving around to different positions to film updates. So it's not the most, visually boring vlog in the universe. So that's what we're doing. But anyway, so I finished, oh my god, I know what it is. Once Upon a Marquess. I'm so bad at names of these books. Historical romance books. I mean, does the title matter? But anyway, so I finished that and I'm giving it 3 stars. I did prefer this male main character and we got even more angst from him in the second half. I really don't know what that says about me as a person, but there was a lot, and I think I really enjoyed like the explorations of that. I did actually start to enjoy myself more, I think, in the second half. Like, I liked the first half. It was like at 3 stars, and then I think for a little bit in like the second half, like maybe like half to like 3/4 of the way or something, I would say it like went up to a 4 star, because I really liked it. And I think actually my main problem with this was the plot. Like, not like the, like, in a romance, usually there's like the plot line that like brings the couple together. So like obviously there's like the romance plot of them like, falling in love, third act conflict, getting back together, all that stuff. But then there's like the plot line of like what's actually bringing them together. So like maybe it's like, I'm trying to think of romance books. I don't know. So like, let's say like The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Her like father has died. She's returned home to her family home. Then in like Get a Life, Chloe Brown, she has this checklist of things that she wants to do. In this book, it's her lawyer is keeping information from her, and she is trying to figure out where her money has gone, and also like where one of her sisters has gone. So that's like the plot. But I didn't actually care about that at all. And so I cared about like them as a couple, and I cared about them as individuals, and I enjoyed getting to see her character because she's like the eldest daughter. She has had to pick up after her entire family has fallen apart. Basically, she is picking up. She is in charge now, and obviously she is a woman, so people don't take her seriously, and she is trying to like work, like high quality work, but obviously she can't let people know that she's a woman, but she's also trying to run the home, and her siblings, nothing she does is good enough for them and all of that stuff. And I enjoyed that we finally got her. She was angry in the second half, and I liked that. And again, I really liked him the entire way through. She kind of forgot about that plot line of like family and all that jazz for a little bit in the second half, and that was actually the part that I enjoyed the most. And then we like got back to it, and the like reveals involving that plot line, I thought that was what was going to happen from the start, and I was like, no, surely they won't do that. And then they did, and I was mad about that, so I did not like that. But what can you do about it? So that's kind of why it went back down to the 3 star, I would say. And then, as I said, I enjoyed them as characters and their relationship and all that. The third act conflict, it made sense. I think the two of them, they just like had different priorities, and it was just like the two of them having to like work through that, and whether or not like it's compatible, it made sense. But overall, I liked it. And yeah, so success, I guess. Okay, so I'm sitting down, and I think I'm about 40% of the way into When the Duke Was Wicked by Lorraine Heath, and I'm not really liking it. I just don't like them as a couple, really. The premise is definitely my favorite premise, but the actual execution I don't like, because so this story, it follows Grace, and she is the lady that has the best dowry out of all of them, and she wants to make sure that she's marrying the right person, and so she wants to be able to tell who's actually like genuinely a suitor and who's just in it for the money. And so she recruits her, the synopsis says childhood friend, but that's not true. I suppose more family friend would be more accurate, who is a widower, to like basically, so like he's a widower and he is now quite scandalous, and tragic backstory and all of that. which I will say, that is one thing that the historical romances, they nail the tragic backstory for the man. The premise itself that I first read, I was like, oh my god, so good. Because it's like, Lady Grace's inheritance has made it possible for her to tell whether Sugar is in love with her or enamored with her witches, who better to distinguish Beau from Blackguard. But then her notorious childhood friend, the Duke of Lovington, with no interest in marriage, he sees little harm in helping. Grace found a proper match. And I was like, oh my god, yes, friends to lover, but like, as I said, that's not actually really it. So I'm a little disappointed by that. But, so, as I say, the positives is, like, I do love tragic backstories. Like, in contemporary romances, it's always like the woman has like just everything in her life is collapsing around her, and then the man has like one extremely insignificant problem that you're like, dude, grow up. And it's like, seek therapy, which, like, yeah, I'm like that for these men as well, but also I'm like, you know, therapists aren't around, so like, but they actually have problems. Like, you know, one is like traumatized from like an accident when they were younger. One has like, is dealing with the guilt of their best friend being dead. They have actual problems, which I do appreciate, because I don't like when it's just the female character that is having a terrible time. I like when they're both miserable. The synopsis makes you think it's going to be friends to lover, and it's really not. It's actually pretty gross to me. Like, I don't like it. I don't like it because she is 19. He is, I think, 28. He grew up with her. She was in love with him, had a childhood crush on him when she was 7. He was 16. Obviously, he did not reciprocate, obviously. And they're constantly saying, oh, I see her as a sister. I see her as a sister. I'm like, if you want me to root for you as romance, you can't constantly be referring to her as your sister, whether it's true or not. Like, you can't be doing that. I find it so weird that, you know, he literally watched her grow up, and like, I have a feeling they're gonna make a nickname that he used for her when she was like a 7-year-old, because like she was really insecure and all this, and like he gave her like a pep talk and called her like a little bud, you know, because he was like, one day you're gonna bloom. Like, I have a feeling they're gonna like turn that into a nickname. I'm like, no, that's so gross. Like, I know this stuff happened, like a lot worse happened, because I thought they were going to be like growing up like literally like the same age they grew up together, but he has no interest for whatever reason. But that wasn't the case. And then I think the other thing is, there's two other things. I would say the one positive is like the yearning is pretty good. Like, that is pretty good. But I do also have kind of complaints with those, because her, like, it's very clear, as I said, because she had a crush on him, it's very clear that she is trying to basically manipulate him into rejoining society and, let's be honest, getting with her. I feel like it's pretty obvious that she wants that. Like, even if she's not explicitly saying it, and like to everyone she's like, no, that's not what I want him to help me. But like, from her actions, that is very obviously not true. And that's icky to me. And then him, he's constantly like, no, I loved my wife and she's dead now, I'm not gonna move on ever. And he's like, I'll just do this one thing. I'll go to this ball tonight and like scope things out. And then like, he'll go there and he'll dance with her and he'll be like, oh, he's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And like, then he's like, I won't do it again. And then like literally the next day he's doing something else. And like, I don't like either of them. I think both of them, I don't like either of them. I don't like them as a couple. And I'm really sad, because this was like obviously I was really looking forward to it, because Maria, like, she said that this is her favorite historical romance she's read. And like, obviously that is not going to be the case for me. But even after that, like, when I read the synopsis, I was like, oh my god, yeah, I'm gonna love this. And then it's just not what the synopsis said really, so it's a little sad about that. We're gonna try and keep this quick because I'm going. Before I get started, I suppose I should say I'm so sorry, Maria, because I know you gave this 5 stars and it's like your favorite historical romance you read so far. So I'm sorry. I give it 2 stars. I would say I liked the premise, like the actual written synopsis, but the written synopsis doesn't tell you that he is like 9 years older, and she had a crush on him when she was 7 and he was 16. And like, obviously he did not feel that way about her. He was like, this annoying little child. Okay, he wasn't like that. He was like this sweet little angel child. But still, it's still weird to me. I thought, based on like the synopsis, that it was going to be two people the same age. She wants to fall in love, get married. He has no interest in it. And so he's helping her out. And that I was so up for. I was so excited. And then when I started it, and it's like, oh, he's already had a wife and child and they're dead. And then he's also like 28 and she's 19. And it's like, oh no. And like, as I said, like, let's be honest, in historical times, a lot worse age gaps existed. But that doesn't mean me as a modern reader has to like it. And as I said, she was an adult and all that. So like, technically it's fine, but it made me feel icky. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't like that it kept being brought up. I think I would have been fine if it had never been brought up. Been like, oh yeah, they were family friends. He hasn't seen her in years because, you know, he had his own life and everything going on. And I would have even been fine with, she'd been like, oh, I had such a little crush on you growing up. But it was the fact, it was constantly brought up. It was like, her parents talked about it. She'd be like, oh, remember how madly in love you as a 7-year-old were with him? And like, everyone kept talking about it. About how he used to, you know, oh, he was like a big brother to you. And it's just, stop. And then also, I think the other thing was the mentions of the wife. It felt like, at some very important points, it felt like he forgot that she existed. But then, at other points, all he could do was remember. And it's like, I feel like you need to switch around what moments he's remembering her or not. Because, like, the moments you are forcing her into their relationships, I'm like, huh? And then, like, other moments, he's just like, wow, like, just not a single thought there. And it just annoyed me so much because, number one, she was constantly brought up and everything. But we never actually got any sort of understanding of her as a person, except she was like quiet, never fought back, and did what she was told, basically. Wow, what an interesting character. And like, because like all of the moments, like he never talked about her as a person. It was all about him. Like it was, oh, I used to go to the balls early to see her. I used to smile like crazy at her. I used to make a fool of myself for her. And it was just me. And it's like, okay, I still don't understand what made you fall in love with her. Like, whereas, and like, because like, it was constantly like that. He was like, I could never fall in love with someone like that again, you know, or whatever. And he'd be like trying to compare the two. And he's like, wife number one, she was just like so quiet. And then he'd be like, about like, you know, is her name Grace? I can't even remember it. I think it's Grace. And he'd be like, and she's so stubborn and beautiful, and you know, and the sun shines brighter when she walks out. And it's like, and he's like, but I could never choose a favorite between them. It's like, oh, I think you have. It was very clear to me that she wanted him to fall in love with her. And the fact, and she like, no. And then it really, from like the first two, like, as I said, I really liked like the messy over the topness of book one. And then in this book, we did actually kind of get some of that right at the end, but it came out of nowhere. Like if the whole book was that like over the top, dramatic, all of that, I would have liked it because like it came out of nowhere. It was really stupid and silly, but like if it had have been the tone already set for this book, I would have actually liked it because of like, as I said, I had a great laugh about how over the top the first book was that I read in this vlog. Whereas in this one, it was very serious. And like all of a sudden, this plot twist came out of nowhere. And like, I was just there like, what has just happened? So yeah, so I gave it 2 stars. Let's just say this is definitely going to be the least favorite on the vlog. Okay. One last book, one last chance. This is my first time ever reading a second chance romance. It's a trope that I can see either really working for me or really not, but also I think it could depend on how and who is doing it, because in theory, I think the angst and the yearning levels could be perfect. Those kind of like, you know, there's still feelings there, but like this and that, and like there's something holding back. Like I feel like the angst and yearning could really work for me with this trope. But also I feel like it could very easily become very toxic, which is why I'm afraid of this trope. Another book that I really want to try with this is You Deserve Each Other, and also Happy Place by Emma Henry. So those are like the two that I know of off the top of my head that have this in it. So this book, I haven't even started it yet, but I do know, as I said, it's a reluctant marriage. I think they were kind of forced into a marriage where I think he was blackmailed by her father, and so they got married, and then obviously that's not the best start of their marriage, but I think that they're like, I don't necessarily think they were like in love, but I think they like, there was like attraction there, and then he like goes away for years, and then he comes back and she wants to basically ruin their marriage, and he wants to save their marriage. So hopefully I'll enjoy it. We'll see. I feel like in this vlog I really had a mix of romances where like the couple really works for me and the premise doesn't, and then ones where the premise really works for me but the couples don't really, which this is kind of leaning into towards that one. But like overall I think this is my favorite so far. I still have half of it to go, so could change, but I do have like a couple of complaints about kind of like, it's just me being me, and like kind of his weird possessive thing. I kind of wish that maybe a little more slower, because like obviously he has basically abandoned her for like 6 years, and he is annoyed by what her family did, she is annoyed by what his has done, and I just wish that like he came home like, oh, there's, you know, is she having an affair and all this, and instead of like, I wish instead of him getting like jealous, I wish he like reflected on that and was like, yeah, I was really bad, I don't get to be jealous about that. That's like my only real complaint, is I wish that like his jealousy, possessive kind of streak wasn't there, because that just is a big ick for me. But I understand that like a lot of male main characters do have that, because that is actually a thing that a lot of people do like in the romance books. As I said, it just does not work for me. But like if that wasn't there, I would like be like, this would like be definitely going to be 4 stars, whereas now it's kind of like teetering between the 3 and the 4. We'll see. I'm hoping that it's going to get a little more ridiculous. This one, like, there's like a lot of detail. I do really like the premise, and I do like certain moments between them. As I said, there's certain moments where I'm like, yes, 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 and there's other moments where I'm just like, this is just not quite my vibe. But like, I'm hoping that it's gonna get more and more ridiculous as he's like trying to kind of like seduce her, win her over, because like the like staff in the house are like kind of in on it. Like well, as far as I can tell, he's not actually like requesting that they're in on it, but they're like, you know, a candlelit dinner, oh, we've run out of candles somehow. And like, I hope it gets more ridiculous. I think I would really enjoy that. I don't think it will, but I would like that. I finished my last book, which was The Earl in My Bed. I can't remember. All historical romances have very similar names, but I think that's what it was called. And I'm giving this 3 stars. Not much really changed from my first update on it. I think out of all of them, this one was actually my favorite premise, I think. I still think the first book was actually my favorite of this vlog, but anyway, we'll get back to like comparing in a minute. I did once again make the mistake of reading this over 2 days. I ran out of time on the first day, so I had like an hour left liking it, but I wasn't loving it. And so yeah, there was nothing about this that I truly hated, but there was just like a couple of moments that just, I was like, the thing is, like, I don't think I'm gonna be too critical of those, because like it is historical fiction and they are actually like historical romance, and like they would be historically accurate, I suppose, like the way that women are treated in that time and all of that. But like as a modern reader, and I'm not someone, I've said this multiple times, I'm not someone who reads for like that fantasy of like the brutish, big, alpha male kind of dude. Like I know a lot of people in real life would absolutely like kill a man who acted like that to them, but they'd really like to read about it in fiction, which is fine. But I don't like reading about it even in fiction. like it absolutely doesn't do anything for me. And obviously, like back in the time, you know, the man is in charge, like the woman, like you're just there. And so like those moments, like they make sense based on the time period that it's set in. But like I still just like, it gave me like just little moments of ick, but like most of the time I would say it was fairly sweet. He tried to grow and listen more and more to her as the book went on and all of that. And so like I do like it for that reason. I feel like this book was so close to what I wanted. I think what would it make if it took like the over the topness from like the first book I read by Tessa Dare and mixed it with this, and also like the angst of the second male main character that I read. He was my favorite. So how this went, like, here's the thing, is like it felt very mediocre because I had 3 3-stars and 1 2-star. So like not particularly good ratings. Like 3 stars are good. They're okay. Actually technically tied as my best romance reading blog so far. So I did the quick maths. So I have to try. So the first blog that I ever did was contemporary, and that one, the average of the 4 books is 2.75 stars. The second one that I did was fantasy romance. The average of that is a 2.5 stars. And the third one I did was dark romance, and the average of that is a 2.5 stars. And then this one, again, this one, as I said, is tied for first. So it's a average of 2.75 stars. Technically, this is like tied as my best one, but it feels very mediocre to me because like I suppose at least in those other ones, like I had like a solid win. Like I had a 4 stars in each and every one of them. In the first one I had Get a Life of Chloe Brown. In the second one I had Radiance by Grace Draven, and in the third one I had Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. So like I had like a solid win in every one of these, but also in all of those I had like a book that I absolutely despised. So like I had very strong feelings at least in those vlogs. So I had Josh and Hazel's Guide to Fake Dating. I don't know what it's called. That was in the first one. I gave that 1 star. Fortuna Sworn got a 1 star in the second vlog, and Haunting Adeline got a 1 star in the last one. So at least we didn't get any 1 stars this time. So as I said, so like it's just like I didn't have very strong feelings on any book, and that's kind of what like makes it feel like one of the worst ones, but in reality it's actually one of the best. But I do think I want to try more. Not historical romances to be goofy is what I've decided. But also I did enjoy the actual like historical factual information that was like shared in the last book. Like very clearly a lot of research went into it, and again I did appreciate that. And the biggest one was definitely the Tessa Dare. Happy Valentine's Day, and thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.